In other news, Jesse Marsh named his roster for the Canadian Shield tournament, which we have been referring to as the He Believes Cup. So it's a 4-team tournament, and the Canadian men will face number 25 Ukraine on June 7th and 41st ranked Ivory Coast on June 10th. Number 86 ranked New Zealand is also taking part. And I also wanted to mention, before we get into that roster and talking points and things that stood out to you guys, on June 7th, the 2000 Gold Cup winning men's national team will be honored. So Jimmy Brennan and Craig Forrest, you guys will be surely taking part in that as prominent figures in that victory. The last time our men's national team won some silverware. So that's got to feel good, right? I mean, I know there was mention made, I think, at the anniversary, but to be recognized in person, I think that's a really big part on our federation's part, I guess, to use part a lot, for them to recognize you guys. Like, it's important to understand where you've been in order to go and move in the right direction as a federation and as a program, right, Craig?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I'm an honored member of that team, and we're really looking forward to that day as well, and a big match, Ukraine. So overall, I think hopefully it'll be a great day all around, and appreciate it, obviously, as a former player.
Have you guys heard anybody who's going to be there that maybe you haven't seen in a really long time, who was part of that squad?
Jeff Clark. I haven't seen him for a while. I think he's going to be here.
Clarky, Zauza.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Zauza.
Are you looking forward to seeing? Remember, JC made that joke about taking pictures with him because he's not looking great. And is there anyone that you're like, oh, I'm going to stand beside that guy? He's looking really old. He's gained a few.
You're talking about me?
Oh, well, that's it.
No, sometimes though, in this day and age with like social media and all the filters that you have access to, sometimes you finally do see somebody that maybe you haven't seen since high school, or you haven't seen since you played on the national team together. It's been decades, or at least a decade, and you see them in person, you're like, whoa, you do not look like your profile picture. Yeah, it's always good to surprise the other way around, where you look better.
Exactly. You look great.
Yes. Why not set the bar low? That's right.
Yeah. Post shitty pictures, and then
there you go.
When people see you, they're like blown away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've got that covered then, Craig. You and I and our selfies at the bar.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, with all the filters we throw in there.
Oh yeah.
All right. So back to the men's national team. So this 23-player roster is named. We've got some new faces, and we've got players who are going to be missing, notably Moise Bombito, who's going to miss both the Canadian Shield as well as the Gold Cup after undergoing wrist surgery. So for me, a big question is who's going to pair with Cornelius in the absence of Bombito. And we've got Luc de Fougereau, we've got Jamie Light-Nabel, we've got Joel Waterman. Kamal Miller will join for the Gold Cup, as will Alistair Johnson, because that's a 26-man roster. But Jimmy, you were on that call yesterday, the Jesse Marsh presser. So what stood out to you in terms of this 23-player roster that he named?
I don't know what stood out, but I know what these two games are going to be all about. This is an opportunity to see players and fresh faces come in, hopefully get some minutes. He's got his core players that he knows they're going to be starting in the Gold Cup, but it gives an opportunity for other players to come in, some maybe that haven't been getting minutes, and showcasing what they can do so that they do make that Gold Cup squad. I think this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a 22 or 23-man roster, but then when you go to the Gold Cup, it's going to be 26.
Yeah, 23 now and 26 for Gold Cup. Exactly.
Yeah, so he'll end up having to make a couple of decisions on certain players that could be coming back from injury and put them on the higher end of the roster, that 25, that 26, hoping that they can jump back on. For instance, Estacchio as well, because he's going to be away. Do you put him as a number 26 just in case they do get knocked out? Then he can join the national team. So, just with this whole roster right now and these two games, this is all about him just having a look at players, trying to get something out of these matches. He's going to have objectives that are set, whether it's the press, whether they drop off, maybe medium blocks, low blocks, counter. There's going to be certain things that they're going to be working on. And for the new players coming in, he's got to be able to see that these players can buy into what he's preaching, what he's doing. Can you play our style of play? Do you have the character that fits in with the dressing room? There's going to be a lot of work and detail that's going to go into these next 2 matches to make sure that when he gets his final roster going into that Gold Cup, that everything's firing on all cylinders, because I think this is a squad that believe that they can win the Gold Cup. And if they can win the Gold Cup, there'd be no better preparation and getting ready for a World Cup than that, in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the interesting one would be the center back situation with Bombito not being there. And they're going to need somebody else, because you just never know through injuries. We know who we would like to have as center backs. We know that. But could be a chance for like a Jamie Knight-LaBelle or something like that to come in and prove his worth and give the manager some confidence that if he needs to play him at the World Cup level or even Gold Cup, that they'll be able to be successful doing it.
I think it puts a lot of pressure in a good sense, because I think he's ready for it, for a guy like Derek Cornelius. Because we've, like, ever since Marsh came in, it's been that duo, that center back duo of Cornelius and Bombito. But I think now it's seeing, can he rise to the occasion when he doesn't have that speed and that pace and that ability to read the game next to him, right? Like, what can he do in terms of leadership, but also leading by example on the pitch, whether it's Waterman or Defougerol or Knight-LaBelle, who's next to him. And I mentioned Kamal Miller. So he will check back in. He hasn't been with the national team for a long time. So depth, I think, needed at that center back position, which was a big question before Jesse Marsh came in, right? At the end of the Herdman era, the Qatar World Cup, that was a big worry, I think, for fans. And I think for us covering the games, like, what are they going to do, you know, as players aged out, like a Steven Vittoria. But all of a sudden you've got the surprise of this defensive tandem in Cornelius and Bombito, but now it's building out that depth. But Forrest, another position where I don't think depth is a concern at all, but where competition will definitely be there for who gets the gloves in between the sticks. So only 2 goalkeepers in Crépeau and St. Clair are named to this 23-player roster. Sirois is a training player, but that's just going to increase and stoke that competition and raise the standard between those two as they fight for who gets the gloves. And the number
I think the competition for that spot is fierce, really. And at this point, it's hard to call who's going to be the number one come the World Cup. Nice to see that Max Crépeau is back in the Portland lineup. He's getting some minutes there after, Pantemis, another Canadian goalkeeper, has done very well in Portland. So he's another one that probably wondering why he's not getting a look in. Pantemis.
It's true.
To be honest, I'd be making some calls going, maybe I'll come in as a training goalkeeper or something. But anyway, the depth's there. The confidence is there. We got several good goalkeepers at the moment, and we just don't know who's going to be the one holding on to the gloves come 26.
Well,
who do you think gets the gloves?
Yeah.
Who do I think? I think that Dane Sinclair is the one that is probably the favorite. I think Jesse Marsh likes his profile. Yeah,
I was going to say, Dubs, for Craig, this is a full tryout, right? This summer, it's almost like a summer, or is it? Or can things change? But if you're putting on a great performance for and the Rose Gold Trophy, and then I might be frozen. Am I frozen?
No,
you're good.
No, you're frozen
No, you're good. You're good. Keep going. Go.
Can I talk again?
Please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Is this like a full tryout? You have the He Believes Rose Gold Trophy, and then you have the Gold Cup. So the cameras are on everyone. This will be, Gold Cup's covered by TSN. There's going to be lots of talk about these matches. Is this a plan, an opportunity to plant yourself as the number one, from a year out?
Yeah, I think every time you hit the pitch, it's a trial. You're trying to impress the manager, trying to do something that catches his eye, and put you in favor to hold down that position. There'll be a lot of nervous players out there that want to be part of it. And the opportunity for this tournament in the summer, as well as the Gold Cup, is perfect for several of them. And it'll be interesting to see if any of them, we see some new faces that come in that catch the eye of, the fans and management, and whether that changes the way Jesse Marsh feels about his lineup.
Yeah. And keep in mind, it's not just these matches that they've got coming up this summer. It's also your domestic league performances. How consistent are you going to be? Are you starting week in and week out? Because you can't be going into World Cup if you're riding the bench and not getting many games under your belt. So from now until the World Cup, everybody's going to be under the microscope, and everybody's going to be showcasing their talents to make sure that they do catch the eye of Jesse Marsh.
Yeah, it's always important. But I think, Forrest, to your point, like, he might get the whole month of June with some players, like a guy like Nathan Saliba, who impressed last fall, but he hasn't seen a whole lot. But in his words, a player with high potential, and also the potential to thrive within our system. So he seems like he's well suited, but really the only window, because he mentioned 6 before next year's World Cup. This tournament, the Canadian Shield, is really the only one that gives him that leeway, that flexibility as a selector, as the coach, is bringing these players in to trial, right? Everything else is going to be predetermined. And Jimmy, to your point, where your club form, how you're doing, giving rest and recovery to players who so desperately need it, like an Alistair Johnston, like a Moise Bombito, they have the conversation. They think, okay, even though he wanted to come in for Gold Cup, you are better served with Nice, getting them into the Champions League, ensuring that you're playing the highest quality football that you can with your club, so that when you rejoin us next, you are performing at a really, really high level. So I think more reliant on club setups, which brings us back to Jonathan David and where he's going to end up. That's going to be huge. And another thing that he mentioned was, will Fonzie, or he was asked, like, will Fonzie be involved at all from a leadership perspective? And Jesse Marsh said that he opened it up to him to be as involved as he would like, or if he needs to focus on his rehab and wants to stay a little bit more insular. But I think if Jesse Marsh has his druthers, I think that Alphonso Davies, as the captain, will be involved in some respect. Do you think, Forrest, that that's important from him as the spokesperson, as the most highly visible player, even though he's injured, that he plays a role this summer?
Well, yeah, a lot of things will come into play. Obviously, is rehabilitation and timing and whatnot. It's interesting that Jesse Marsh sort of left that open to him.
Yeah.
But would I like to see him around? Yeah, I'd like to see him around the squad if he has time, and put some time in with them and build that relationship just with the players. And it's always important. And
maybe his agent too, Craiger. Maybe his agent comes over a bit for a couple of days. Yeah. They'll
be happy to see his agent.
What about you guys as players? If you were in camp, and I mean, it's a pretty involved and rigorous month with these 2 tournaments and demanding on you as a player coming back. But is it important for the culture of the team, Jimmy, to have your captain involved in some respect, even though he's rehabbing a pretty major injury?
Yeah, it'd be good to have them around. Obviously, they're all friends. They've got good friendships. The only thing that you have got to be wary of as a manager is you just don't want it to become a distraction.
Right.
Now, you probably say, okay, hang around the team here and do your thing. But, at certain times when we're getting ready to play here, the players need to get focused. I can't have you coming in bantering and messing around. Maybe you just stay outside. But there's a time and place for it, and listen, Fonzie's obviously a professional. He's been around the game, but, they just have to be careful the way that they handle it, because like I said, you don't want it to be a distraction. I mean, I remember Mark Burcham was injured and we had him around the team, and it was an absolute mess before matches because he was off the rails. He distracted everybody.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, I remember me and Carlo Corsi were injured for this 3 Nations tournament in Edmonton, and Holger wanted us to come up and be around the team, but he was also like, I want you to stay at another hotel. Which actually was a very good decision, because boy, did we have a good time.
Yeah.
There you go. I think it's important as a coach that your eyes are wide open to that, right? To understand who the player is, what their personality is like, and what their influence could be, potentially positive or negative, right? Because you need that levity, to your point, Jimmy, like somebody to kind of make the guys laugh, have that banter, and maybe a good distraction, but you have to toe that line so carefully so it doesn't all go off the rails.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to touch on before we wrap this chat with our men's national team was a new face will come in as a training player. So another dual national. So Jesse Marsh has done really well in terms of his dossier of getting these dual nationals in and experiencing what it means to be a Canadian, what it means to be part of this group. And he even spoke to that, said that the best way for them to get a sense of what it feels like to be part of this Canadian squad is to experience it. So Gabe Carey, I believe, Dave DeCola, please fact check me on that pronunciation, but I believe I've got it right for a guy who has an Italian dad. But he'll be in camp for Halifax and Toronto. But Marsh believes he may have found another Jonathan David in the 18-year-old Manchester United Academy forward. He's Cardiff-born, mother's Canadian, father's Italian, as I mentioned. He's represented Wales at the youth level and is also eligible for England and Italy. So Jimmy, how important is it to have a player of this particular profile? I know there's more attacking depth now with the men's national team, but a youngster like this with so much upside, how important it is for him to be in and experiencing what it means to be part of this Canadian squad.
Yeah, obviously they see a lot of potential in this player. They want him in the squad, and hopefully they can get him cup tied, and his allegiance will be for Canada, because even at a young age you just never know how they're going to develop, how far they're going to go in the game. But if he's going along the path that he is, and the expectations are met, then this could be a wonderful talent for this Canadian men's national team. But then also you got to give a little bit of credit for the scouting staff that's finding these gems and these players that can be dual nationals.
A lot easier when you have a World Cup around the corner to recruit.
Sure.
And as well as, with the changing to 48 team World Cup, we'll be ever present, or we should be ever present at World Cup. So that's something as well that it makes a decision much easier if you're going to get an appearance in the World Cup in the future, as well as the one you're gifted in 26.
I know there's still a long way to go, but just the fact that Canada is in the same discussion with these promising young players where they have the potential to play for Wales or Italy, and Canada might be number one in the pecking order there. Like times sure have changed, haven't they, Craig?
They've changed, and the actual level of what the squad is playing at right now, and the excitement around this squad and what they could potentially do in 2026 is a lure to anybody.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the players now are looking at the squad and thinking the moves that these Canadian players are getting, and it's an opportunity if they can get into this national team. Maybe I'm going to get the next big move that Fonzie got, and Jonathan David and Tejan Buchanan, and the list goes on.
Mm-hmm. Right, almost using the national team as the shop window, right, to really showcase your abilities and get a big move with your club or from one club to another.
Yeah, happens all the time at World Cups. You put in 3 good games, 4 good games, and you get clubs that will come after you. We remember that Javier Margas was a Chilean, and I remember 98 he played really well for Chile, and West Ham ended up signing him. He never did settle. His wife didn't speak the language, and she didn't settle, and neither did Javier. So he ended up jumping out of the hotel window and getting a plane and going back eventually.
Christ.
I thought I was going to end a lot worse.
I know. It's worse than a Chow Chow dying when you got it for Mrs. Butterworth.
It was only the second floor, and Harry and Frank Lampard Sr. went to the hotel to chat with him about what was going on, and he didn't want any part of it. So Harry said he jumped out of the window and went to Heathrow Airport.
Holy shit. Well, at least it all didn't end after he jumped out the window. That's what I was afraid you were saying.
No, he's just fine.
And then he disguised himself back in his hometown as Mr. and Mrs. Butterworth and told Chow Chows.
Yeah, and the Chow Chows.
Maybe he's told it to me.
And then his little dog, Jimmy Brennan.
Yimmy, Brennan.
Yimmy. Little Yimmy.